So when you first jump into Wayfinder, Airship Syndicate's upcoming free-to-play MMO, you will have 3 character options of which Wayfinder you want to begin your journey with, following a tutorial that allows you to sample each of them in turn, in a similar way to what Warframe does with Excalibur, Volt and Mag. You're going to have to pick one. Only in Wayfinder, it's Silo, Wingrave and Nis. So let's take a quick look at each of them in turn and maybe help you decide which you're going to want to pick when the game goes into early access in May. Now, it is worth noting that each Wayfinder has a passive but also 4 abilities that can be leveled up to change their effects or how those abilities will function. But if I remember correctly, you can't level them all completely. So you will have to pick and choose which abilities you want to build that specific Wayfinder around, which ones you want to max out, which means hopefully a decent amount of variety of builds going around the community. Now, there is a 5th ability of sorts because each weapon that you can equip will also have a special ability attached to it that you can charge up for use. Like, say for instance, Silo's Ransom Rifle, whenever you hit weak points it would charge up to 3 shots of extra chunky damage, or one of the two-handed axes had a huge amount of ground slam. You get the idea. But anyway, the Wayfinders you're going to get to choose from, starting with Wingrave. Wingrave is the Templar of the game, the only healer at the minute, but he is more than just a healer. He is a tank as well with taunts. He can also use any weapon, and you can use echoes if you wanted to increase his damage and not follow that high health damage resistance mold of the typical tank in an MMO. So you could run with a two-handed axe and be a damage dealer who is breaking enemies. So Wingrave's passive is Healing Pulse, which is melee finishers will heal Wingrave and one nearby teammate, which plays off his first ability pretty well, Righteous Strike. So Righteous Strike is a frontal blade swipe that deals damage but also heals Wingrave and nearby teammates, and it's refreshed whenever he uses a melee finisher. His second ability is called Radiant Pulse. This is where he summons a shield down in front of him that blocks projectiles and grants a defense boost to Wingrave and allies, but it won't protect against melee hits, so you have to be careful with it. It also deals frontal damage when it is first summoned. His third ability, Judgment, is an area of effect debuff which marks enemies. It also taunts them, but then when those enemies are hit by you or teammates, you and your teammates will receive a heal each time. So it is a nice way to keep yourself and your teammates topped off in a tough fight. His ultimate is called Divine Aegis, which creates a bubble or a dome. Anyone standing inside this makes them immune to all incoming damage, and it will heal them over time as well for its duration, but you have to be inside the dome. So I played a fair amount of the beta with Wingrave. He's the one I spent the most time with, and he was really hard to kill. The combination of timing your blocks, using his Righteous Strike with his Judgment for heals, and then the Aegis Dome for oh shit moments was really great. But let's not hang about, let's move on to the next one and take a look at Silo. Silo is the gadget guy, but he also runs with a rifle which has a quick reload mechanic. He is a ranged Wayfinder and his whole kit promotes that, but like Wingrave, you could swap him around with his weapons to daggers or two-handers if you wanted to, play a different type of a more aggressive Silo, entirely up to you. But for a passive, he will deal 10% more melee and range damage to enemies that are affected by slows, burns, poisons, or stunned. So basically he deals extra damage to status affected enemies, which his whole kit encapsulates anyway. His first ability is Firebomb. It's a fire grenade that sets enemies alight. Simple, right? His second ability is Oil Bomb. It's a slow grenade that covers an area with oil, slowing enemies inside the oil, but also when they leave the oil, it also keeps them slowed. Chuck your first ability Firebomb onto the Oil Bomb and watch it explode, dealing much more damage but also refreshing a charge of your first ability Firebomb as well. So his first two abilities should be used in combination with one another. His third ability is called Proto Clone, a holographic clone that taunts enemies. Really good for grouping enemies up since it seems to suck them into its center when you level this ability up. Group them up with this, chuck an Oil Bomb on top of them and then ignite them with the Firebomb. But when I leveled it, it also had the ability to send out a shockwave when I shot the actual holographic clone itself. This shockwave dealt a lot of break damage, you know, that yellow energy bar above the enemy's health that you want to break down to make them stagger and take more damage. His ultimate ability is called Arc Nemesis. This is a floating drone or egg that zaps all enemies in a radius around it over a short period of time, but it also deals a slow to those enemies as well. So Silo and Wingrave are the two that I spent most of the time with during the beta. And right now I'm probably leaning more towards Silo than I am to Wingrave for when the game goes live, because I really enjoyed the crowd control, and to be honest with you, the bombs and explosions were really nice as well. Now, our third Wayfinder of choice when you begin the game is Nis. Nis is our Shadow Assassin, the dagger-wielding, shadow-stepping cannon From what I got to try of her, she dealt a lot of damage compared to the other two at lower levels, and I'm sure that's going to scale significantly as well. Her passive is called Lingering Shadow. After she dodges, she gains 5% AP and it stacks 3 times, and she dashes a lot, so 15% bonus damage nearly instantly with each battle, because you are going to be, I guess, initiating that battle with a dash. Her first ability is called Shadow Step. This will dash in a line wherever you're aiming, dealing damage along the way to anything in her path, and after a very short delay, a Shadow Clone will dash in the exact same path, hitting the exact same enemies that you just dealt damage to, so you're kind of getting a double dash or double amount of energy out of it. Her second ability is called Umbral Aura. This gives Nis 3 charges of shadow energy that seek out and pierce nearby enemies whenever she dodges, so you can basically dodge 3 times and it's going to deal a decent amount of damage. It will also give teammates 1 charge of that shadow energy, so when teammates do 1 dodge, it's also going to send out a shadow energy that will seek them and deal damage. Now her third ability is called Vengeful Shade. This makes her jump up into the air and throw down some shadow daggers, but you can follow this up with a slam with her melee weapon if you want to, or you can dodge backwards and she will backflip out of the way if there is some danger in front of her. And her ultimate is called Gloom Shroud. Nis's first ability, Shadow Step, will have no cost for 10 seconds, so you can go absolutely nuts spamming her Shadow Step and wiping out groups of enemies. It kind of reminds me of Bladestorm with Ashe in Warframe. So that's the 3 beginner Wayfinders. Like I said, they're each going to come with their own voice artists, they're each going to come with their own backstory that you will have to, I guess, learn the more you play the game or the more you progress through the story, and you will be able to choose one of them, and then after that you will have to farm the components to the other 2, so choose wisely. There is also Senja and Kairos. We got to sample a little bit of Senja during the beta and she also hits really hard, but Kairos is one we haven't seen in action yet, or we haven't had our hands on, and there is also the blacked out one to choose from on the website, which we don't know anything about. But they are also working on multiple Wayfinders behind the scenes, with some close to ready and some still in early conception. But that's the 3 beginner Wayfinders. Like I said, this is going to be a free-to-play game. Let me know in the comment section below which of these 3 beginner Wayfinders you'd be leaning towards whenever you decide to jump into the game later on this year in May. Have a great day, have a great week, and as always, thanks for watching.